Psychotic crime. The case of the Whispering Shadows was in the quiet suburbs of Riverside, California, where nothing unusual ever seemed to happen, lived a young man named Daniel Harker, 27 years old. To everyone who knew him, Daniel was quiet, polite, and strangely withdrawn, someone who blended into the background so perfectly that most neighbors barely remembered the color of his eyes. But behind that quiet exterior, something was changing. For months, Daniel had been struggling with hallucinations, whispers that echoed when no one was home, soft voices calling his name from the dark corners of his room. At first, he thought it was stress, maybe insomnia, but the whispers grew louder, clearer, and more demanding. And then came the delusions. Daniel became convinced that a shadowy group was watching him through the lights, the walls, even through the neighbors' windows. He believed they wanted to control his thoughts, steal his identity, and use him for some hidden experiment. None of this was real, but Daniel had already lost his grip on reality. One night, after days without sleep, Daniel heard a voice calm, familiar, and terrifyingly persuasive. "They're coming. You have to protect yourself." Convinced that he was in danger, Daniel fled into the cold darkness of the night. He wandered through the empty streets, shaking, sweating, hearing footsteps behind him that weren't there. And then, he saw a man walking toward him. A simple stranger. Someone heading home from a late shift. But to Daniel, in his psychotic state, this stranger wasn't a stranger at all. He saw him as an enemy, someone sent to capture him. Acting out of raw terror, Daniel assaulted the man, believing with absolute certainty that he was fighting for his life. The attack lasted seconds, but its consequences lasted forever. When police arrived, Daniel was found trembling, crying, repeating the same words. "I had to do it. He wasn't real. They were coming for me." The investigation revealed a heartbreaking truth. Daniel had been showing signs of untreated psychosis for months. His family had noticed changes: paranoia, fear, talking to himself, but they never imagined it could become dangerous. What Daniel did was tragic, but it wasn't driven by cruelty, violence, or hatred. It was driven by a complete break from reality, where fear replaced logic and hallucinations replaced truth. The court later confirmed that Daniel had been suffering from a severe psychotic disorder. He was placed in a secure psychiatric facility, not a prison, where he finally received the treatment he desperately needed. Over time, with therapy and medication, the voices faded, and Daniel was left face to face with the devastating consequences of a night he barely remembered. This case remains one of the clearest examples of how untreated psychotic disorders can lead to acts that seem unimaginable, acts committed not out of evil, but out of terror, confusion, and a desperate attempt to make sense of a world that no longer feels real. A reminder that behind many psychotic crimes, there isn't a monster. There is a person lost in a reality we cannot see. And that brings us to the end of today's story. In the world of true crime, every case leaves behind deeper questions and darker mysteries. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to support the channel and subscribe so you never miss a new case. This was And So with Habib. See you in the next story.